I want to be an example of somebody that when a tragedy happens, they don't let it destroy them, and instead they use that tragedy to make their lives even better than they would expect, and then also improve the lives of others.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who lived in Philadelphia, partly because she loves Rocky Balboa, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Running for Real, episode number 22. I have a really special one for you today. This one is, well, my guest is so inspiring. It is just a whole new level to most of us think of, and it will really put things in perspective to you. You know, we realize just how much we take things for granted and how much we're actually not challenging ourselves. So you will hear from Rob. I'll tell you more about him in just a second. But firstly, so last week we had Megan and Brian from R4R, the ultramarathon and trail running website. And it was really great to kind of get behind the scenes of the website that has become the go-to source for any ultramarathon or trail running. And it was great hearing their stories, their insights, as you can imagine how much they've learned over time. So if you did miss that one, make sure you go check it out. And then something I wanted to mention to you, you know, this isn't anything that I had structured, but I just kind of thought that I would talk to you about this because it's just made such a big difference in my life. And I thought it's something that I think many of you can benefit. So, you know, we as runners tend to get really stiff sitting around all day. And I know many of you are concerned about it. Many of you have reached out to me about, you know, your tight hip flexors, your stiff back, you know, muscles are sore from sitting all day. And it's really difficult to kind of make sure you get up enough. And actually, I was lucky enough to get my hands on a Varidesk Pro Plus 36 to be exact. But the Varidesk I have got has been so good because it allows you to sit, it allows you to stand, you can easily change between the two, kind of find a middle ground. And I actually got a chair to go along with it, which has been, you know, fantastic as well because it's kind of like sitting on a Swiss ball, but a bit more structured than that. I also got a active mat, which there's another one that has a groove for those of you who have plantar fasciitis. Now, Varidesk is not paying me to say any of this. I just thought that I would mention it because it really does make such a difference. It's just a true game changer. You know, it helps athletes like me. I don't know if you can consider me an athlete anymore, but you guys are certainly the athletes, and it will help you to feel better. It will help that movement throughout the day. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to take too much away from Rob right now, but I thought I would mention it. I will put links in the show notes. So that's Varidesk. That's Varidesk. Mine was the Pro Plus 36, and I also got the active mat. And I can't remember the name of the chair, but I will let you guys know. I'll put links in the show notes. So make sure you check that out if you are interested. As I mentioned, today we do have a special guest in Rob Jones. He is doing an incredible adventure in just a few months, and I know you guys are going to want to support him because his story is just life-changing. It's just incredible. So be prepared. Here you go. This might bring on a few tears, but be brave and just support Rob in all that he's doing. Smoothies, recovery bowl, bars, cookies, biscotti. What do all of those have in common? Any ideas? You can make them with Generation UCAN. How's that for a win-win? Learn more about Generation UCAN at generationyoucan.com, and I will give you a coupon code later in the episode for 10% off. Rob, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. This is going to be a really special episode, and I know this is going to be one that people are going to remember for a long time. So thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So let's dive right in. You know, you have so much to share, so much people want to know about. So I don't want to tiptoe around with the kind of small talk stuff. So let's go straight in. You are a retired Marine Sergeant, had double above the knee amputations, if I have that correct.
Yep.
And so my first question is thinking about that. You know, I'm sure that's more common than most of us realize for people to come back with some kind of, you know, amputation or something that goes wrong. But many people, I just think about myself and just knowing many others probably struggle with this, how to adapt to a new life. And that's partly why you're here today, because you want to kind of talk about, this journey that you're on. But how did you kind of process it once you got back to the US and kind of had to reinvent yourself into this new person? Did you struggle with that? And how long did it take you to kind of figure out that you wanted to do something?
Yeah, the way that the war is working right now is amputations are pretty common. I'd say the number, I don't know the exact number, but it's in the thousands. So it's a pretty common injury. For me, I think that humans are infinitely adaptable. You see a dog that's missing a leg, and he pretty much doesn't know. He just runs around on his 3 legs. He doesn't really even register that he's missing a leg, probably. We're a little bit smarter, so we kind of know how things are supposed to be. But I think what it really boils down to is I woke up in the hospital and I was alive. I was still breathing. The heart and lungs, they're autonomic, so you can't just say, all right, stop. So I was alive, and so I just decided that, hey, my life goal hasn't changed. I'm going to try my best to have the best life I could possibly have. And in order to do that, I needed to heal. I needed to learn how to use prostheses, and I needed to get strong again and just continue on with what I was doing before. So I just did what I had to do, really.
And so did you kind of decide that immediately, or was there, you said that, but then once things kind of sunk in when you got home and, we as humans tend to take things for granted. Did you get to a point where you did struggle like that? Or was it, from the get-go, you were like, no, I am not letting this defeat me?
Yeah, I never really had, I'm not saying that it was easy to do. It was physically grueling and frustrating at times. And it took a lot of figuring out how to do things. But I never really got to a point where I was sitting there telling myself, this isn't worth it. This isn't going to happen. I can't do it. I just chipped away at it every single day. And I just had that goal in mind I wanted to be self-sufficient, and I wanted to not be slowed down from what I had planned for the future. And I just kept remembering that. And that really overshadowed any kind of sense of doubt or anything like that. So that's what kept me going.
And what was the most difficult thing then about going back to, a life you once knew, or maybe it's, in your case, maybe a brand new version? What is the most difficult thing for most people when you are readjusting to life back, in your home?
It's the little things. Things take a lot more planning now. So if I want to go down a really steep hill, it's possible, but I have to kind of approach it in a way where I'm focusing on that solely. I can't hold a conversation while I'm going down this long hill. I can't, take a drink of water while I'm going down. I have to focus on that specifically because it takes a whole lot of concentration. And just day-to-day stuff apartment choice. I have a tendency, I need to have I don't have to, but ideally I would want to have an apartment that's on one level, doesn't have any stairs, and it's tough to find that kind of thing. I've lived in a couple apartments where there was a 10-stair staircase that I had to go up and down. I had to carry my bike up and down and every time I wanted to go do a bike ride. So it's just little things like that for me.
And what about people treating you? Was it difficult to kind of show them that you didn't want to be wrapped in cotton wool, or were people around you pretty good at treating you like they normally would?
Yeah, the war had been going on for a good 9 years at that point, and the physical therapy clinic had gotten to a point where they had seen they'd seen quadruple amputees. They'd seen double hip disarticulations where both legs are absolutely totally gone. No stump at all. They'd seen everything. So they kind of knew what I would need and how to handle me, so to speak. And they were tough. They didn't take excuses from people. And I think that was one of the reasons why that physical therapy department is so effective is because they don't pander to you. They know what you can and can't do. They've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
So they did not take any kind of excuse. Not that I tried to give any, because I was motivated to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. And that's great. And, obviously it worked because, I guess next question, did you continue working with them? You went on to start rowing, and we'll talk about your success of rowing in a minute, but was that kind of a continuation of your physical therapy, or did you, decide, okay, I want to join the gym, I want to find a coach? How did the rowing come about?
The rowing. So I was always interested in the life of the athlete before my injury. I trained for deployments, but I really liked the simplicity and the ethos of being an athlete. And so, but I knew I wasn't really physically gifted. I was never going to make it to the Olympics or anything like that. I was an able-bodied athlete. So it was something that I was interested in, but I didn't think I was ever going to be able to do it. And so when I got injured, I don't remember how it came about, but I ended up finding out about the Paralympic Games, and I heard it was the Olympics for disabled people. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. And I just started researching, looking up different sports that were in the Paralympic Games, trying to figure out maybe something I could do. And I saw rowing. And the only connection to rowing I had was I used the rowing machine for workouts in the gym. And I just knew that it was a tough workout. And one of the things I was concerned with at first when I got hurt was that I don't know if I'm going to be able to work out again.
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to do squats? Am I going to be able to do deadlifts? I mean, that's something that I really enjoy doing. And so by looking into rowing, it was kind of a way of finding out what I could still do and trying to get a few of the things back that I once had and regaining them for the future. And so I looked into rowing, and it turned out that there was a place where I could go learn on the water close to the hospital.
Oh, cool. And
I kind of decided in that first couple weeks that I was in the hospital that I was going to try and make the Paralympic Games. And I mean, everything just kind of fell into place, luckily.
Did you tell people that was your goal? Or is that something you kept to yourself?
I don't remember ever broadcasting it a whole lot, just because it's a nice goal to have, but you kind of have to work out the practical things like finding a place to learn how to row and then actually being able to train. But once I started learning on the water, and once I got to a certain point in my recovery that I could kind of start doing things besides practicing how to walk, I convinced the clinic to let my coach move a rowing machine, Concept 2, into the clinic, and they found a place for it. And so I was able to do rowing workouts as I was kind of transitioning from, strictly recovery to recovering / moving on.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. And then, so you ended up getting a bronze medal in the Paralympics. So you definitely accomplished that goal and finished 4th in the World Championship. So maybe tell us about that journey to getting to that point. Like, what did that involve? I mean, you told us about learning, how to do it correctly and starting to, but how did the training aspect kind of go for you? Did you enjoy being able to work towards that goal and, seeing it come into reality?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it did exactly what I thought it would. And that was I set myself a really tough goal. And it was kind of a way for me to figure out what I can do and how big of a challenge can I still take on. And the fact that it was successful really bolstered my confidence, because I succeeded in this first big goal that I was trying to do, and it was so fresh off my injury. And so my confidence was just, through the roof afterwards. And yeah, like I said, a lot of things had to fall in place in order for it to happen. My category is a mixed boat, so it takes a man and a woman in the boat, and it's trunk and arms only. And so, I mean, first off, I was lucky that there was a program where I could learn that was close to the hospital. Second, I lucked out that there was a female in Louisville, Kentucky, my partner, and we just so happened to really mesh in our styles. And she had been waiting for a partner to try and make it to the Paralympics. I lucked out with proximity to when the Paralympics were, because if I had gotten hurt in 2011, I probably wouldn't have had enough time. If I got hurt earlier, it probably would have just benefited me. But it worked out that I got hurt early enough that I would still have enough time to recover and then go after it. And so I was stuck at the hospital going through separation paperwork from the military. It takes a little bit for them to do all the bureaucratic stuff. And so while I was doing that, I wasn't really in therapy anymore in summer of 2012. So I just went down and trained on the water. And then when I was in the clinic, I would just use the rowing machine. And then once my recovery was over and I was finally discharged out of the Marine Corps, I think the next day I drove down to Florida because it was December. So I made a deal with my partner. We were going to move to Florida so that we could train every single day, because I knew that we would have to train every day, twice a day. So we both moved down there. I drove down there the day after I retired, packed all my stuff up, and I lived in a hotel for about 5 months. And we just trained every single day, twice a day, maybe a day off on Sunday. And we did that all the way through September. And just so happened, we just were really good together. So we were able to kind of get a quick improvements and then win the races that we needed to win in order to qualify. And so, that's the story. Yeah,
no, that's great. And how did that accomplishment feel, knowing like what you'd been through, that you had not only done it in general, but you'd, overcome it and kind of recovered and still managed to accomplish this?
I mean, I was proud of it. It was 2 years after losing both legs. And I mean, you should see pictures of me. I was like a skeleton just from I wasn't able to eat much in the first couple of weeks. So I was like a shell, and just being able to not only recover from a devastating injury like that, but then relearn how to walk and then take it a step further and learn how to row, and then take it another step further and row at a high level and train twice a day like an elite athlete has to. Yeah. I mean, I was proud of that, but I will tell you that coming in third was not totally satisfying.
I can imagine that being the case. But we're never happy as people, are we?
Proud but not satisfied. That's how I describe it.
Okay, well, maybe you're going on to do bigger things now. So let's talk about those. So you went to cycling first, and then you went to running. So your next challenge, I'll let you explain a little more. A marathon a day for 31 days in 31 cities. So tell us why this challenge? What made you decide on this?
Well, the running it's just something I kind of learned. The reason that I'm running is I learned that I was kind of good at it when I was doing triathlon the past couple of years. I set myself a goal of being able to do a 5K in 18 minutes, and I reached that actually pretty quickly. And so I was trying to think of another challenge to do in order to raise money for veterans. And I thought, well, I'd run the Marine Corps Marathon a couple times. And I thought, well, I'm decent at running, so let's do a bunch of marathons. And I was trying to figure out, how many should I do? And I just figured I'll just do a full month, and that ought to be the kind of the right amount, because you don't want to go too long so that people lose interest, but you don't want to go too short either, because you want to make it nice and tough. And the reason I want to do such a big challenge is because I want to be an example of somebody that when a tragedy happens, they don't let it destroy them, and instead they accept that challenge. They accept that tragedy as a new challenge, and they use that tragedy to make their lives even better than they would expect, and then also improve the lives of others. So I'm taking on this challenge to prove that veterans that have been wounded, whether psychologically or physically are not permanently broken. They're not out of the fight. They just have another challenge, another tool that they can use to improve their lives. And so I want to show people that, and I want to show civilians and veterans alike.
Amazing cause, and what an inspiration you are to others. I'm sure many even listening are going to see how they can apply this to their own, struggles and things, and see just how amazing this is and what you're doing. And, 31 marathons in 31 days in 31 different cities. I mean, let's discuss that part. So you're not just running a marathon every day for a month, but 31 different cities all across the US and London and Toronto. So tell us why you decided to kind of add that even greater challenge of making the, cities be all in different states and in different countries.
Well, I kind of figured if I wanted to get the most outreach, I would have to go to different places. So I could probably run 31 marathons in 31 days here in Washington, D.C., and it'd probably be pretty big, but I'm only reaching the people in the national capital area. So in order to get this message out that I'm trying to send to people, I figured I would need to hit up a bunch of different places. And then that way I would reach millions of people as opposed to just the people here. So I decided I would do a bunch of different cities in America. But then I also realized I had worked with British forces. I've worked with Georgian forces. I haven't worked with Canadian forces before. But I realized that these guys bleed the same as we do. They get injured the same as we do. They have the same mental challenges as we do post-war, coming back and feeling isolated from society. And so why wouldn't I mean, they're our closest allies in the world, and every fight that we've been in these past 15 years, they've been there. So why wouldn't I also try and help them as well as my American brothers? So I figure I'll do one in London, and hopefully that will reach the British populace and British veterans. And then I'll do one in Canada as well, and hopefully that'll reach them there.
And that's great. And so tell us about and by the way, I love that you include that as well, obviously being British as well. I love that. I loved everything you just said there. But tell us about the logistics of doing it in 31 different cities. Like how, I mean, I know the answer here, but let's explain to people how this is going to work logistically with you doing all these marathons and moving to the next place.
Sure. Well, obviously the one in London, I'm doing that one first because of the time change. So if I were to do that one last, I would lose the day. So I need to do that one first. So I'm starting there. And then hopefully I'll be running in Hyde Park. Yeah, that's my plan. And then I will pretty much immediately leave after finishing and fly to the East Coast of America. And I'll really only lose 3 hours because of the time change. And I'll land and I will hop in my RV, which I hope to get loaned to me by somebody that has an RV. We haven't gotten it yet.
Well, if anyone listening, if you have an RV.
Yeah, if you have an RV, get in touch with me. So hopefully we'll have an RV. And then I'll start in Philadelphia. And then the way that it'll work is I'll wake up in the morning, probably start running around 7. These aren't going to be, organized big city marathons or anything. I'm just going to show up to a trail and I'm going to run either an out and back or loops of a park or something like that until, 42.2 kilometers is finished. And I'll take breaks as I need to. I'll eat as I need to. And I'll kind of stay within close proximity to the RV and use that as a little bit of a base camp. And hopefully people will be joining me for a section of the run or the whole run or just coming out and clapping and cheering. And so I'll leave, I guess, whenever I finish, and then I'll, hang out. And if I have any interviews or anything like that, I'll do those and talk to people, spread my message. And then we'll pack up the RV and we'll just drive to the next city. And we'll just repeat that until we're done 31 times. And I planned out the cities so that, my first one in America is Philadelphia, and then the next one's New York. So our longest drive is between Salt Lake City and Seattle. and that's only 14 hours. So most of the drives are really only 6 to 8. Well, that's why we're having an RV. I don't have to drive. I'm just going to run and then go lay down in bed and eat. But luckily, all the cities are pretty close, so I'm not traveling a ton in between each one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And so what parts do you anticipate being the toughest? Is it that one with the long drive, or do you see other parts with maybe Texas and the heat? Like what is your kind of anticipation of the parts you're thinking are going to be the most difficult?
I mean, that's a good question. I think logistically speaking, the longer drives will be not necessarily tough, but they're the ones where the most can go wrong. Mm-hmm. So if we get delayed for an hour, then, we might not make it to the next run by 7 a.m. So that'll be the ones where we have to be a little bit more careful. Mm-hmm. I think the toughest for me to run might be the ones at altitude in Denver, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, I think is pretty high up there. And I've ran in Colorado before and it didn't affect me too badly, but those, and then hopefully South Texas will be a little cooler by the time October rolls around. I don't know, but the heat does mess me up a little bit. Makes me sweat a lot more. And then my legs, I put my legs in the prosthetic socket, and then so there's no way for the water to evaporate in there. So it really gets clammy and there's all sorts of water in there. So those will probably be the two toughest parts. And then obviously just the grind of,
day after day.
Do it every day. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And are you doing any of them happen to fall when there's a marathon in the area, or is it just that's too difficult logistically to figure out?
I think there might be a couple. I think when I'm in New York, there might be the Brooklyn Marathon going on. But for me, it's a lot harder to run a big city marathon than it would be to do it from the RV, because I'll have my own base camp. I'll be able to take breaths. I'll be able to take my legs off and kind of dry my legs and reapply like chamois cream that I use to prevent like blisters and breakdown and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I don't think it would be the best idea to join in on one of those marathons because it's so hard to get the support.
No, that makes total sense.
Yeah. But I think there might be a couple that coincide.
Okay. Well, we can we can keep checking to see what you decide in the end. And then what about training? What does training for this look like for you?
Yeah. Obviously a lot of running. I've been doing the Maffetone method.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been training with the Maffetone method, keeping my heart rate under 150. That's my Maffetone number.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll just pause you for anyone who's listening that doesn't know. So what Rob just said at Maffetone method is, you keep your heart rate at, is it 180 minus your age?
Yeah, it's 180 minus your age.
And then there's a few little factors, that you add in or to add or subtract. But then if you keep all your running under that heart rate, it helps you build that aerobic endurance without actually like stressing you out too much. So there's a lot of research on it. I will put links in the show notes so you can check those out if you are interested. It's pretty popular nowadays, and Phil Maffetone is definitely one of the leaders in our industry. So I'll put some links, but carry on with your story. How you're training.
Yeah. So the Maffetone method, it just trains the cardiovascular efficiency. So as you keep your heart rate in that, for me, 145 to 150, at first you'll be slow, but then eventually you'll be at that same heart rate, but you'll be running a lot faster. So I've just been doing that because my thought process on this is, if I'm going to be running 31 back-to-back marathons, I need to prevent my body from breaking down as opposed to respond to it breaking down. So I kind of figure, based on what I've read, that if I can reduce or limit the amount of glycolysis that I'm doing, that's going to greatly aid in my body not, oxidizing and breaking down in that way. Mm-hmm. So if I can keep it kind of quote unquote, clean fuel from fats, then that will keep me from, I think that'll just really help me to keep going day after day because I won't be breaking down as much.
And so are you running like marathons in training, or like what's the furthest you're doing?
Yeah. So right now I started probably this a little bit earlier than this last year. I really took it slow. Like when I first started, I probably run for an hour and then 90 minutes and then 2 hours. And I've kind of kept it at most of my runs at 2 hours. But what I did was I would have one long run a week, like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would run 2 hours 3 times a week. And then I would have the one long run. So I started maybe making that 20 miles would be my long run. And then I kind of started messing with the sequencing. So maybe run 2 hours Monday and then do 2 hours Wednesday, 20 miles Thursday, and then maybe another 2 hours Saturday.
Yeah.
And then I started bringing those things closer together. So I'll do maybe 2 hours Monday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll do 3 runs in a row. And now I'm getting to a point where I run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'll have a full marathon distance in that block somewhere.
Okay.
And then the other 2 days of the week, Monday and Saturday, probably I usually will do some kind of strength in the gym.
All right, great.
And take a day off.
That's always important too.
Yeah, you got to rest.
Rest day brag. So I don't know if you know what that is, but that's a big hashtag going around in the running world, rest day brag.
Oh, what is that?
It's just, encouraging people that taking a rest day is actually good for you. And it's not necessarily something, people always brag about how much training they've done, but rest day brags is all about, how important the rest is and bragging that you actually have the restraint to allow yourself a rest day. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then just a question, obviously having the double amputations above the knee, your running style is going to be very different to, a typical runner. So I'm just thinking that a lot of runners, struggle with shin splints or struggle with calf issues or Achilles or knee, and you've kind of removed a lot of those. So what are the things you have to watch out for when you're running? Yeah,
so the way that I run, and maybe I'll send you a video so people can see it.
Yeah, sure. I'll put it in the show notes.
So I have my prostheses, and so I don't have a knee. And so basically, if you can imagine just your femur, and then there is a solid cylindrical pipe coming down out of your femur.
Okay.
And then that is attached to a C-shaped piece of carbon fiber. And that's my running foot. So it's C-shaped because it basically works like a spring.
Mm-hmm.
So I load it up and then it unloads and kind of bounces me forward. And so I have 2 of those. And since I don't have that knee, I can't run, the regular way where you just bring your leg through. And so I swing it out to the side when I'm in the air. So I swing my left one out, lands, bounces me up. I swing my right one out, catch myself, and just repeat that. And what hurts me the most usually will be my lower back.
Okay.
I've been told by physiotherapists that is because I forget the muscle is somewhere in the hip girdle. There's a muscle that's not supposed to be used like that, so that tightens or gets strained, and then that'll tighten my glutes, which tightens my lower back.
Okay.
And then which tightens my upper back. So luckily for me, I got massaged. My mom is a massage therapist. She gave me a massage the other day, and she's actually going to be coming on the trip, and she's going to give me massages every day.
That's great.
She massaged me right after a marathon, and she said nothing really felt tight. So I think with the training I've been doing, that is actually reduced how tight I actually get. But I imagine, that'll probably stop being the case after my, 4th or 5th one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing. So let's talk a bit more about, the cause why you're doing this. You've mentioned that you're doing it to show veterans that they're not alone and you want to raise money. You have a goal of 1 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, 1 million.
So
it's a big goal.
Maybe tell us firstly about you mentioned on your website about the recent Virginia study. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about. Maybe you could mention that and then tell us how would the money raised help with that? And also why, maybe elaborate a little bit more on why you're doing this, how this is going to show veterans that, they can do something like this as well.
Yeah. So the Department of Veterans Affairs study that you're referencing is a lot of people know the number 22 in with regard to veteran suicide. And so that number was based off a study that was done in the past. And so they did another recent one that estimated, it was 20 veterans a day are committing suicide. And I mean, from my perspective, that's a big problem because we have these people that have taken it upon themselves. They've taken it as their personal responsibility to fight the battles of America and try and make the world a better place in doing so.
Yeah.
And now they're coming back to America and they feel like they don't belong, or they get into dire straits with financially or personally, and they think that they have nowhere to go. And so somehow they believe that, well, they're better off dead. And for me, that's unacceptable. So, and what the reason that I'm raising money for these veteran charities is for me, the Veterans Affairs has actually treated me incredibly well. Yeah. I get so many different legs that for any use, I get cycling legs, I get running legs, I get walking legs, I get rowing legs, I get all sorts of legs. And I never have to wait very long. And so I personally have had a great experience with the VA, but I also realize that the VA or the military doesn't always have all the resources to help with every single problem or every single issue that veterans might face. So that's where these charities come in. And so if somebody can't make a car payment or they're about to lose their house, the Department of Veterans Affairs might not be able to help them there, but there are people out there that are willing to help them. And that's what America is about to me, is all 300 million of us coming together and working on a problem ourselves, not relying on the government or somebody else to do it. We're taking that responsibility on ourselves. And so that's what these charities do. And I think that, and then they also have conventions where veterans are flown down to Florida or a really nice resort somewhere, and they bring them together and they develop that camaraderie and they talk about their problems with each other. And in that way, they form another community where they feel welcomed, and that helps them to not feel like they're alone and they have no other choice but to commit suicide or end their life. And so that's what they do. They fill these niches that the VA might not be able to do just because they lack the resources.
Okay, great. What a fantastic cause. And I'm sure people listening will be thinking, okay, how can I help? How can I donate? So I will put links in the show notes, but maybe tell us about where people can go to support you towards that 1 million goal. And then we'll also talk about what they can do to physically help you as well.
Yeah, best place to go would be my website, robjonesjourney.com. There's donate buttons there, or you can also buy a t-shirt there, the official Month of Marathons t-shirt. $10 of each t-shirt goes to the veteran charities. And I'll be updating there, but people can also follow me on all the social media at Rob Jones Journey. But yeah, that's the best. I'll be updating there. I'll be keeping people informed there, and then I'll also have the locations of each run posted there, as I figure out where they're actually going to be.
Okay, so someone, let's say, like you mentioned, Philadelphia, my favorite place in the US.
Really?
Yeah, I lived there and I loved it. So if you need to know somewhere to run, I know all the spots.
All right.
But I know we also have plenty of listeners who are in Philly, so they might have different ideas. But so let's say someone lives in Philadelphia or Seattle or something. What can they do? You're going to have the information on the website about when you'll be starting. But you mentioned earlier you'd like people to run with you. What would you like people to come out and do?
Yeah, I would love people to just come out and run, or if they feel so inclined, call up their local newspaper or TV station and tell them I'm coming through. I think one of the best ways for us to get this word out there is to get the story told by a lot of different outlets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would love for people to come out and join me for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you want to run the whole marathon, that's great, but you can run half a mile with me too. I just want to get people out there and started on this journey to take personal responsibility for the things that they believe in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. And I would encourage anyone listening, if you do live in one of those cities, and there's a lot of them, although Rob, you were coming to Louisville and I'm an hour from there, but I happen to be out of the country. So I was just like looking at your list. I was like, I give all just like a few days. I miss you. So, but there's all kinds of cities all over the US, Toronto and London too. So if you are listening, I know there's a lot of you in places that he will be running. So make sure you do check those out. Do go join him. Do support him. And let's just come together and see what we can do to help Rob on his journey here. So we've kind of talked about all that. I'll put links in the show notes and a video of you, as you mentioned. But maybe I thought for a moment you could maybe talk for a minute about who you'd like to give a shout out to, or someone who's been particularly supportive or integral, or a few people. I've been kind of thinking, and actually you can be my experiment here, that I might add a new question in towards the end of the podcast. And listeners, you can tell me what you think. You can be my guinea pig here. So the question I was thinking of asking is, if you were to give like an Oscar speech or maybe an award speech, like maybe you were honored for something and you were allowed to give a speech, who would you thank, in your like, I'd like to thank speech? So
yeah,
anyone you would say?
That's a great question, because I mean, everybody that you see up at the Oscars or you see getting an ESPY award, it's like they're the ones that got the award. But maybe like that's top little, maybe the lanyard actually belongs to them,
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it belongs to all the people that helped them make it possible, because nobody did that stuff alone.
Absolutely.
For this challenge, number one's got to be my wife, Pam. I mean, she set up this interview with us. Mm-hmm. She has been my biggest supporter in this. She's taking on so many different things. She's going to be my team leader during the runs. She's contacting media. She's setting things up like this podcast. She's doing just about everything. She's I bounce ideas off of her. She helps me, if I wrote something, she tells me whether or not it's good. So she'd be number one. And then obviously my mom, she's going to be helping out. She's doing media stuff. She's going to be my therapist, keeping me together and on the run. I have a team of people that help me on my bike ride across America. And also they're helping me with this and doing that same thing. That's helping me get the word out, helping me to get venues locked in that I can run at. Mm-hmm. So I have Team Rob, I call them. Mm-hmm. So they are integral in this as well. And then, I mean, I've had so many just people that I look up to, like my first coach, Rob McDonald, and my rowing coaches, Brad Lewis, Roger Payne, and Mark Twight. I look up to him, and I mean, all sorts of, and all my friends from the Marine Corps who have fought with me, and my family has supported me. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving plenty of people out, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
No. It's always going to be tricky, isn't it? Especially you, as I put you on the spot. I'll have to tell people every time. But then they'll have like a 3-hour list of like, the lady who looked after their cat when they went to,
Yeah. How do you decide what makes you worthy of the Oscar speech? Or
Yeah, exactly. Well, you'll find this funny. So we spoke at the before we started recording, saying that you'd listened to last week's episode with Bonnie. But
yeah,
as you probably don't know this, I was a professional runner until like 6 months ago. Stopped running to start a family. I'm now pregnant.
Congrats.
So all that. But I called my team Ice Cream, and each person had like a flavor. So like my strength coach was coffee. My sports psychologist was honeycomb. My husband was plain old vanilla. But that's what
they get to pick their own, and you do a
they got to pick their own. Although one guy, Kyle Bowling, who I love, he's a chiropractor. He tried to pick cake batter, and I said, nope, that's mine. So you can't have that one.
Oh, yeah. Cookies and cream, he could have had that one.
Yeah, he did pick something else, but everyone had a flavor. So that was kind of cool hearing you say that. All right, we're just going to take a moment to thank our sponsor, and we will be back with the Running for Real 4. I may have stopped running, but one of my favorite sponsors still makes its way into my food every day. Generation UCAN. You probably already know I'm a huge fan of UCAN. No, I used it as my sole fuel source in my 2:36 marathon. And yes, I was a little bit scared I would bonk, but my energy levels felt exactly the same the entire way. I didn't have those ups and downs, the sugar highs and sugar lows that gels gave me. But maybe you're thinking, yeah, Tina likes UCAN, but what is it? Well, UCAN is a carbohydrate source originally created for a little boy named Jonah, who continually had low blood sugar. Years later, UCAN is a favourite amongst many elites, including everyone's favourite, Meb Keflezighi. UCAN is giving Running for Real listeners 10% off using code RUNNINGFORREAL. So check out generationyoucan.com for more about UCAN and learn how it can help you control your blood sugar, fuel your races, and maybe make those bottomless pit stomachs of ours be happy for just a little bit longer post-run. All right, Rob, just 4 more questions for you, starting with, I usually say a unique nutrition tip, maybe something that you like to eat or something that works well with you.
I've been thinking about this, and I think my most unique thing that I like to eat is nothing. Oh. And what I mean by that is realizing that you don't have to eat all the time. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be hungry. And also the therapeutic effects of just fasting and getting that kind of fat adaptation going. And it's a great way to reboot your hormones. And if you fast for a day, and it kind of helps to kickstart your body's natural processes and how it's supposed to work. But I definitely think that the realizing that, if you don't eat, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine unless you're not eating for, weeks and weeks. But if you miss a meal or something, it's not that big of a deal. And it also kind of helps you to deal with a little bit of adversity a little bit when you're going through your day and you're hungry. It gives you a little bit of extra challenge to deal with. That's
for sure. Thank you. What about a running for real moment? So a moment that only runners would understand, maybe something scary or embarrassing or something that non-runners would just kind of, give us a puzzled look because they have no idea what we're talking about.
There's been a couple times where I've been running and my prosthetic foot breaks. And so the most recent time was I was doing a marathon training run. And I was about 13 miles away from my car.
Oh no!
And my running foot breaks, and I can't walk with it. It's just snapped right in half. I couldn't possibly walk. And luckily, I was on this pretty big trail here in DC, and somebody just they saw me go down, and they came over and like, "Do you need help?" And I was like, "Well, can I borrow your phone?" And I didn't know anybody's phone number, and so I had to call this. I had somebody's phone number in the area in an email, I think. So I checked my email, called this guy. I was like, "Hey, can you come pick me up because my foot broke?" And then another time I was in the mountains in Utah, in Salt Lake City. I trip and my foot breaks, and I was just crawling back to my car because I was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And eventually this 65-year-old man stops and he's like, "I'm carrying you back." So I was like, "Come on, no, you can't carry me." And he's like, "We're going to do it." So he put me on his back and he had to take, 3 or 4 breaks, but he got me back to my car.
Wow.
And then another time my foot broke and a cyclist stopped and I said, "Well, would you mind riding your bike all the way back to my car, maybe like a mile away, and driving my car down for me?" And so, those are all humbling experiences, and they make me realize, as capable as I am, and this can happen to anybody. I mean, somebody could break their foot and be stuck.
Yeah.
As capable as I am, things can go wrong in just an instant. So it's important to remember that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Do you have some extras that you're going to take with you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always have extras. I just wasn't carrying them out there.
Yeah,
I'm going to have 2 extra sets.
Okay.
And so hopefully that won't have any fractures, but if they do happen, then I will plan for that contingency.
Okay, great. What about a high moment for you?
I think probably running the Marine Corps Marathon, because it's this, I don't know if you've ever ran it, but it's this incredible marathon in DC, and obviously it's run by the Marine Corps, so it has a special place in my heart. And there aren't very many amputees running on prostheses, and so I take pride in the fact that I'm one of the few that choose to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm running, like, it's just a constant, there's people lining the streets, and as I'm running, it's just a constant, rolling cheer as I'm running by. And so it's extremely memorable for me. And that's probably, it was tough, but I try to do it every year. I won't be able to do it this year because of my month of marathons, but I do plan to do it as many years as I can.
That's great. Yeah. No, that's on my list. I haven't done it. I did the Army 10 mile, but I haven't done that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so finally, what do you tell yourself when you're standing on the start line for a race, like to build your confidence?
I usually just tell myself, I just remember all the training I've done. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually thinking more practical things, like for the Marine Corps Marathon, keep your heart rate under 150, or when I was doing triathlons, I would just kind of go over my plan for the race. In rowing, I would sing on the start line because it made my partner laugh, so it kind of
lighten the mood.
Relaxed, it relaxes you. And then my rowing coach, in his book that he wrote, he said, there's nothing cooler than being able to laugh on your way to the start line of a race.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the other reason I did that was because the ancient Spartans, before battle, would sing to each other. They would sing to the guy next to them because it would calm them down. So I kind of used that same idea. Yeah,
that's great. Awesome. Cool. Thank you for sharing. And finally,
sure.
I ask all my guests to send me a photo of them in a power pose. So that's something you would use to build your confidence, maybe the way you're going to stand before you begin this challenge, or just something you would do to put yourself in a strong position. Will you send us a power pose?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. Well, Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been absolutely amazing. You are such an inspiration. I'm sure you will have lots of people reaching out to you to, support you and be there for you. And I wouldn't be surprised if we had a lot of people come out and run with you as well. So thank you for being an inspiration, being a role model, and for all that you do.
Thank you. I hope to see everybody out there, and it's been a real pleasure for me to be on the podcast.
Well, what did I tell you? That guy there is a true role model, a true leader, and, hopefully helps you to see that you can do so much more, whatever stage you are at in your life. I will put a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Everything we talked about in the show notes, including a video on the way that Rob runs that he mentioned. So you can go check that out at tinamuir.com/episode 22. That's the number 22, not the word. And remember, I also talked about Varidesk at the beginning. For those of you who are having issues with hip flexors, with backs, with, just tightness and not feeling great, and you're worried about your workday, the Varidesk is just fantastic. Really, really has been helping me with my workday. And I just feel so much better standing on it. Or using it while I stand and sit. So hopefully you'll check that out as well. I want to thank you so much for listening today. Next week, we are going to have an interview with Dr. Mark Cucuzella and Dr. Josh Edmer, who are going to be talking about SteadyMD running, their new adventure, and then also what else they've been up to, because these guys are really kind of leading the field when it comes to doing things in the health industry. So hopefully you will enjoy that one. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.